So, where have I been? It's been 13 months since I last posted a video. The last video series that I posted was operations. I've done a number of those. Those videos take a great deal of effort. There are many clips, and the editing is a long, slow process as well. I thought I'd take a break at that time, around about that time, September last year. I also changed jobs, which resulted in roughly a tripling of my commuting time. Left a lot less time for modeling and other things. I was also thinking about my next video. What would it be? It was video number 100. Could I do something special? Should I do something special? That involved a lot of procrastination. And not too long after COVID set in, and of course all of our priorities shifted. It became more important to get outside every day a little bit after sitting in front of a computer for 10 hours. I had begun working from home. I'm still working from home. So priorities shift. We do what's important for our families, and we're still doing that. I did spend some time investigating speed matching for my Q&E locomotives. It didn't quite work out the way I thought. I thought there might be a video in there, but it's something I'm still working on. With the summer weather setting in, naturally more time again spending outdoors, getting into cycling and hiking, etc. So less time for modeling. Through it all, I still managed a monthly operating session by myself, but it's a large layout, so an operating session that would normally take 3 hours with 3 people ends up taking a week and a half, moving a few cars at a time each evening or every few days according to the switch list. Also spent some time with refining the macro, the Excel macro that I use for the switch lists, to be a little bit more prototypical and to deal with some shortcomings that it had in terms of how it assigns trains to staging tracks. So after a number of requests and concerns from you, my subscribers, I thought I'd better get off my rear and put something together for you. So here's something that describes what I've been up to for the past 6 weeks or so. Enjoy. This is the east interlocking plant for the Conrail, Quebec and New England interchange yard. It controls the crossovers and access in and out of the yard. The west interlocking signals were installed in 2013. There's a couple of videos that were done previously, videos number 22 and 23 if you want to see that in greater detail. So it looks like I've put this project off for about 7 years now. I've always had all the parts, I just didn't have around to it. Now that I've got around to it, that third access road finally makes some sense. One of the things I did differently this time around was to route the prototype signal cables underground between the bridges and the signal bungalows. This is the eastbound signal bridge. I've used the larger of the 2 bungalows that come in the Grant Line signal bungalow kit for this location because it also controls the dwarf signal from the yard into the interlocking that has not yet been installed. And here's a picture of the Grant Line packaging if you're interested in the kit number. Here's an overview of the workbench just before the sub-assemblies were spray painted with aluminum. On the top right, you can see the 3 spools of extension wire that are used to extend the very short wires that come with the signal heads. And below that, you see the actual signal heads with masking tape covering everything except the actual face of the signals and the wires. To the left of the signals are the tops of the signal bridges. Those parts can't be installed until the walkway boards are inserted and glued down. To the left again are the brass tubes that are used to carry the wires down from the top of the signal to below the layout. Each signal has 2 wires per head. So there's 4 wires coming down each side of the signal bridge, and we need to have a way of hiding those, bringing them down for future control. Only the black ground wires are left exposed and carried through the cage of the signal bridge to simulate the real cables coming down from the signal head to the bungalows. To the left of the brass tubing are all the resistors that had to be cut off because obviously they couldn't pass through the brass tubing. To the left of the resistors are the walking platforms that are made from individual 2 by 8 inch scale lumber and stained with a light wood color. Now let's get some close-up views of the signal bridges themselves. Here we can see that brass tubing was also used to extend the signal masts themselves, and they're connected to the bridge with small pieces of styrene that have been drilled through to bring the wires out and hidden underneath the bridge and eventually down through the longer tubes you saw before. Here we see the 4 concrete footings for the signal bridge. Notice that 2 of them have additional holes drilled in them to allow the brass tubes to carry the wires under the layout. These brass tubes get tied up against the vertical members of the signal bridge, so they kind of disappear from view. Here's a close-up of the wood walking platforms. Notice that they are made from 8 individual boards. I've just used magic tape to hold them together on the underside, and they are stained with Woodland Scenics raw umber. Note also the scribe marks in the wood that is used to simulate the 8-foot-long planks. Here we see a close-up view of the ladder extensions that were added to each of the signals because they have to reach down from the top of the bridge to the wooden platform below. I've always been concerned that this sharp bend in the roadway here was a little too close to the railway track in the background, and it's also elevated a little bit with a pond on either side of the bend. It's kind of screaming out for something to protect vehicles from going down the embankment and ending up in these ponds. So I naturally thought of this guardrail system by Pike Stuff. Each package contains 6 of these sprues, and when you put the pieces end to end, it makes a guardrail about 24 inches long. I used about 1.5 packages. My guardrail is about 32-34 inches long. Here you see me test fitting a portion of the guardrail as yet unpainted and still without the end caps. Quite messy, drilling through finished hard ballasted shoulder. Although you can see the guardrail is quite flexible to go around a fairly tight curve. The trickiest bit was making sure the holes are drilled exactly the same distance apart as each of the stanchions. Came across this kit quite by chance at a recent visit to George's Trains. It's amazing what you can get now from 3D printing. This fire hydrant kit is from a firm called EALEC. You can find them at www.ealec.com. And this kit costs $20, so that works out to $1 per hydrant. The kit comes undecorated, so you can choose to paint the fire hydrants any color you like. I chose yellow because it stands out more against the background scenery. Also came across the stop signs by Tai Chi Train Group. These are more reasonably priced at 50 cents a piece, but they do require some work before you can install them on the layout. The kit is molded in red plastic with white printing on the face of the stop sign only. I chose to model aluminum posts rather than wooden posts. It seemed much easier to do since the back of the sign would be aluminum and the post could be aluminum, and with some careful masking you can get the aluminum paint where you want it. I felt this would be easier than cutting off the stop sign heads and gluing them to wooden posts, 4x4 posts, and staining them in a wood color. So these have been sprinkled throughout the layout, wherever an appropriate stop sign belongs. The fire hydrants were spaced at roughly 3.5 feet apart where there were long stretches of roads. This simulates the prototypical spacing of about 90 meters or 300 feet. The fire hydrants have also been strategically placed around the layout. You saw that there was one just outside the bulk transfer facility. There's one here hiding behind the ammonia and propane gas distribution facility, and there are others that we'll see as we pan across the layout. There's a fire hydrant opposite the furniture factory and one closer to the shingle plant in the distance. Of course, the diesel shop and company offices have a fire hydrant, as does the industrial park and the steel transfer facility. You may have noticed there are still no crossbucks at any of the railway crossings. That has been a frustrating exercise, and you'll hear about that in another upcoming video.